My name's Charmaine McCauley, and I run Racism in Real Time, and I also do it with Lizzie. And they've been really successful. And I've invited Katy and Alice, who did the 10-week course, and then also did subsequently another 10-week course. And so they've done a total of 20 weeks. And so just sort of inviting them here to get the firsthand experience of what it was like to be two amazing white women on a course that run by a Black woman and with Lizzie. So if you could just sort of speak to some of the highlights, recapping of a before and kind of an after event, and what was that like for you with the rest of the people? I'd be grateful. So whoever would like to go first.
Can't hear you, Alice, but no. Oh no.
Can't hear you, Alice.
You've lost your sound, yes. We're having
so in the meantime, Katy, why don't you go while Alice is kind of sorting herself out? Okay.
Well, yeah, I'll start. So I had done I'd read some books, and I'd done the sort of Me and White Supremacy workbook, and I'd done another really good online course about racism run by two Black American therapists and a white American therapist, which was really good, and there was kind of lots of chat activity, etc. But then somebody from my psychotherapy modality recommended your course, Charmaine, and I looked at the website, and I just sort of had a feeling in my belly that I needed to do it, and it's funny because we had our little reunion yesterday, and I felt that same feeling in my belly, and it's like my body saying, you need to be doing this. It makes me feel a bit tearful saying that, actually. And your course was at a level that none of the other courses have touched, because you brought in the body and the heart all the way through, and B, it was what was happening in the group at the time. I wasn't just sitting back and watching. It was completely experiential and relational and terrifying. I mean, I think I shared in the group sometimes before I would go in on a Tuesday night, particularly after the incident, which I might talk about, which I learned loads from, I literally, my kneecaps were shaking, and my partner was saying, you don't have to go. You can cry off if you want to. And I just said, no, I just had such clarity. I can't because I felt like I was learning more there than I learnt in the last 20 years since I did my psychotherapy training, which turned me inside out. I could say more, but I think I'll just shut up for now and let Alice say something.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yay!
It's great.
Goodness, thank goodness. So, gosh, there is so much to say, and I think for me, in like a general overview of the course, I would say utterly and completely life-changing, and similar to what Katy was just saying. I think before starting Charmaine's course, I'd started the work around race and racism and where it lives inside me and society more from a distance perspective. So reading, listening to podcasts, things like that, kind of just becoming a bit more politically aware and social justice, racial justice aware. And then doing Charmaine's course just really brought it into the personal space. So less out here into the political realm, although that did come into the course a lot, what was happening in the world. But actually what Charmaine did was really bring it into what's happening in your body when we talk about race. And I can kind of feel it happening now as well, as it always does, like that slightly kind of nervousness and like a heat in my cheeks and a racing kind of heart. But I would say probably in a less terrifying way now that happens for me. It still happens, because there's something just unknown, I guess, about the conversations around race, but it's less, I feel less terrified and paralyzed by the conversations compared to how I felt at the beginning of doing Charmaine's courses. And I think I don't know if I can say like the biggest part of the journey, but one of the biggest parts of my journey up until this point has been around recognizing my whiteness, and that whiteness exists, and that is a race, and what that means to be white, and how that shows up, and how that plays out, my whiteness, how it plays out in my relationships with others, other white friends and other people, you know, people of color who are friends or colleagues, and it's just kind of, yeah, opened that all up for me in a really profound way. And in a way, because I was kind of thinking about this before our conversation today, trying to prepare myself for like what I might say, which is interesting. But there's something about that, it doesn't feel like a choice anymore, and it doesn't feel like something I can switch off. So it's like that's been turned on now, my awareness around my whiteness and race and racism and how that lives in the world and in me, and that's not something that I can choose to kind of engage with or not engage with anymore. It's there, and it's a part of who I am. And that would not be the case without Charmaine's course and Lizzie's support in that course.
Can you, either one of you, talk about an experience, a specific experience, either about what the group process was or what it was like for you within the group, about how you felt a huge difference and how that has impacted you? You know, one of the things I always say, it's not about intentions, it's about impact.
Well, that's one of the things that's one of the takeaway things that I remember, that you saying that if a black or brown person says to a white person that was racist, what you said, actually we don't get to argue with that. We don't get to say that wasn't my intention. We have to hear the impact. That's one of the strongest messages that I got. I've got two answers to what you just asked, Charmaine. So one thing, a bit like Alice was saying, I think before I did your course, I felt really frozen and paralyzed around race because I was trying desperately not to say the wrong thing and to trying to get it right. And strangely, even though, you know, there were times on the course I felt so viscerally uncomfortable and was trembling, I don't feel so frozen. And that's because you taught me that I'm just going to get it wrong again and again and again and again and again, and that we start where we are. That's what you always said, and that I feel so liberated by that. It doesn't mean I don't have to do a lot of work around that. It just means that's not the issue. Trying to not get it right is that's the wrong thing to be trying to do. It's something about, here I am again, I've had a racist thought again, I've said something, I've been silent when I should have spoken out. That's, as I was saying last night, that's because my whiteness and white supremacy is in the fibers of my being. I can't avoid that, but what I can do is choose how I address that and what I do about it. But I think for me, a lot of my learning crystallized around the big incident that happened in our group, where, if I just describe it really briefly, where a group member, it was in the first 10 weeks, and a group member said something that I remember thinking, oh, that, you know, I felt really uncomfortable with what that person said. And you, Charmaine, called that person out, and they had their response, and then I instantly thought, God, how would I have felt if Charmaine had called me out? And so did lots of other people in the group, and we all sort of focused on that person and asking them how they were, and, you know, and then I remember you saying, Charmaine, guys, you just look what's happened. This is racism in real time, because you have all, I'm the only black person here and I'm the one who's got hurt, and you have all completely focused on the white person who's just committed the aggression. And I remember, I don't know what Alice's experience was, but I just remember, like, I was looking over there and I just thought, oh my God, I totally missed that. I totally didn't get that. And you know, so you weren't just calling out that person, it was all of us as a group. We had all done the white thing, which was gravitate towards the poor white person who's upset because they've said something and forgotten the black person who's been hurt. So I'm probably not even putting it very clearly into words. It was such a sort of profound experience of, that's all I can say about it. And I feel like I'm still processing that. And that's why I needed to do the other 10 weeks, you know, and we needed to just keep working on it. I don't know what your experience was of it, Alice.
Yeah, I think very, very similar. And the thing that's coming to me to kind of add to that is that there was something, that experience was so visceral, like you've said, and actually seeing it play out in real time was so, like, you can't get more a better way of learning and understanding than that way of learning and understanding. And yet the way that you facilitated it, Charmaine, was, I don't remember going completely into like a shame place. I remember feeling like aghast that this had happened, and yet so kind of grateful for the whole experience. Like, I just felt like it was such a gift, I guess is what I'm saying, to be able to be in that experience and then learn from it, and for you to stay with us in that and to guide us through that learning process, even when you were hurt and it was horrible. And yeah, and I can't imagine what that felt like from your perspective, for you to guide us through it then and be able to learn from it, and also to experience it as a collective. So I know that that particular incident was probably very different for the person in the group who was kind of at the center of it, if you like. But I felt as part of the group experience of that being within the group experience was really, really useful. And maybe that enabled me to not go completely into a really shameful place where I couldn't learn from it, where I sort of defended against, would have maybe defended against it or something like that instead. I think that is the standout moment for me as well. There's like little bits of more personal moments where it was a personal learning for me that happened, but I think as a group process, that was the biggest incident. Yeah,
I wanted to ask, so what is it about the course and the body that makes this so different for you from other courses that you've taken?
It's a really good question. The body, well, I was thinking about it actually, you know, knowing that we were doing this conversation because of our meeting last night. And I was thinking, one of the ways that you taught, which I really love, and I was just thinking, you're such a good teacher because you bring the body in. So last night, and this is characteristic of what we did on the course, wasn't it? You would show clips of things. So I remember on the course, you showed a clip of Little Fires Everywhere. That was one that we did. And what we were watching, you know, the thing we were doing yesterday, passing. And your question, you ask really specific questions about what is that black or brown person's body having to do in this situation which you're watching. And so I'd watched the film already, I'd watched Passing already, but when under your that scrutiny that you asked us to use, I could begin to see her body and what, you know, how a black body has to shape itself against the experience of racism. I don't know. And I think you got us to feel into our bodies, and you got us to imagine that exercise from Toni Morrison's book, where we had to imagine being Pecola, the little girl, to try and embody what it was like, what it might be like to be a black or brown person on the receiving end of daily racism. I think it was that, and the sort of breakout rooms and the pair work, and even that first exercise we ever did, which Alice was talking about whiteness a moment ago, but that first exercise where we had to, in the first week, we had to get into pairs, and you just said, describe your whiteness. Well, it was like you'd said something in Japanese. I didn't, it's like, oh, because I was working with another white person, obviously. And yeah, that, I would have done that in a completely different way at the end of the 20 weeks than I did that. It was interesting to notice that I couldn't get a purchase on it, really. Yeah.
And also on the flip side of that, I would just say, Katy, on the reverse end of that, I remember us doing a similar exercise to what we did last night in passing, but we did it in the group course with clips from 12 Years a Slave, from that film.
Oh yeah.
And that Charmaine, you asked us to do the opposite, where we were focusing in on the white person's body, or the white character's body, and what they had to do, or what they were doing, in order to be able to treat the black people in that film, in that context, in the way that they did, and to dehumanize them in the way that they did, in the way that slave owners did. And that was so profound for me, because I think I'd watched that film when it first came out, years and years and years ago. And I remember sobbing my way through the film because of how harrowing it is. But I'd never looked at it from that perspective. I hadn't looked at it from the perspective of what are the white people in that film, like, what are they doing? Like, what is happening to their bodies in order for them to be able to treat another human being in that way? And kind of coming back to that very iconic, well-known film and looking at it from that perspective as a white person, focusing on the white body, was really, really, really profound, and had a massive effect on me thinking about my whiteness.
I guess, John, do you have a question that you'd like to ask from your perspective?
Thank you, Charmaine. Well, I was wondering what you might have then noticed in your practice or your lives following the course. Any differences there, or yeah.
Do you want to go, Alice? Because I keep jumping in first.
Yes. So practice-wise, it's really interesting, because I think I'm a drama therapist, and it feels like it's a very white world. It feels like quite a whitewashed world, or has felt to me like that, in terms of, I guess, who my colleagues are, and also I work with children and young people, and they're all white at the moment, and have been for the last few years, I would say. So I guess race comes into my practice in terms of looking at it in as an overall field, and what we need to do as a field, as a type of psychotherapy, and also within my own practice, where it shows up in my relationships with other white people, and negotiating that. And that's still very much a thing that I'm figuring out, and that is alive, and that I haven't got many answers to or figured out too much around. But I guess what I notice is that it's alive in me. So I'm not letting those moments where race very much comes into the room. I mean, it's always in the room, but we don't always focus on it, I guess. But when it is in the room in a more focused way, that I'm alive to that, and I'm kind of interested, curious around it, and maybe more challenging if I'm working with a white person who says something racist or has an undertone of a racist comment or whatever it might be, or just generally the way they're talking about the world. I don't know. It's a bit hard to talk about it without breaking confidentiality stuff, but yeah, I guess I'm just more alive in that sense around it, and that feels like that drip feeds into with colleagues and things as well. Yeah, I would say that's probably how much it's showing up at the moment in terms of my practice. Yeah.
Thank you, Alice. Thank you.
I think for me, it feels, you know, another thing I think I took from the course is just, this is lifelong practice. I feel very conscious of having a very long way to go. And what I'm working with, so again, I also work in a predominantly white field. I'm both a psychotherapist and I run a perinatal mental health voluntary sector organisation, co-run it. And actually I did Charmaine's course as part of trying to make our organisation more inclusive from the roots. But I feel like I have to, in my body, I have to be working with this stuff really actively to make those changes so that they're not just cosmetic. And I feel like one of the things that I'm really trying to work with is around my silence, and really recognizing my silence when there are sort of, racist comments or microaggressions or racist kind of undertones or overtones, as you were saying, Alice. I'm really trying to work with that, because I just feel like I have been silent too many times. So I'm trying to build my resilience and my muscle for bringing that which might be a bit challenging and a bit uncomfortable into relationship, and sort of tolerating people being a bit being resistant and a bit pissed off and a bit kind of knocked. And I have not got it sussed at all. I'm just trying to challenge myself one step at a time. And another thing that I really learned on the course, I remember Charmaine, you saying a few times, I can't tell you what to say. I can't tell you what to say in all these different incidents. But if you can be in your body and you can be in your heart, that's the place from where to kind of meet this stuff. And I think Lizzie, I think you've said that as well, Lizzie, really helpfully. And so I'm trying to remember to do that rather than rehearsing little scripts that I might say. I'm trying to, in each encounter, I'm trying to slow it down and be in my body and my heart. And if necessary, if I do not manage to say something, to come back to it afterwards with somebody. And yeah, so I feel it's slow. But like I was saying in our group last week, just showing that those medical illustrations of Black people to my baby therapy training that I'm also doing, which, because it shows a beautiful illustration of a Black fetus in a Black woman's belly, a kind of cross section. And yeah, just, it sounds ridiculous, but it felt, because I've raised race quite a few times on that training, it felt like I've already, people have, yeah, I don't know what their responses are. I'm making them up, but I just thought, no, I need to keep doing this. I need to keep doing this. And actually there was a lot of welcome for it. Yeah, a real work in progress. One other thing I just wanted to say as well, that was massive for me was something about the racial wound, stepping into the racial wound that you talked about a lot, Charmaine. So for me, the kind of awful feelings of horror, like if you watch 12 Years a Slave or whatever, can, I think probably in the past, I've either frozen around that or just got utterly lost in my own shame and distress at being complicit in all of that. And what I learned, I think, and I might not be getting the words right, Charmaine, or, I won't be, because I'll just keep getting them wrong, and that's just how we learn. But there was something about you sort of helping me learn that that's an important place to be. That's the begin. If we can stay in that place and tolerate it, that's just beginning to have a tiny little visceral experience of endemic structural racism and white supremacy. That's a place we have to know. It's not somewhere we have to kind of, I don't know. I just kept thinking, no, okay, this awful thing that I'm feeling, this is the work. This is the work. And then Lizzie, you said something really helpful to me about also not getting lost in that place, but kind of moving through it as well. So that it's like, oh yeah, there's the racial wound, and I need to kind of work with this rather than expect any Black or brown people to sort of haul me out of it. I think I'm bordering on incoherent, so I'll stop there.
Oh, thank you, Katy. I think that's really helpful. I had one other question, but I didn't know, Charmaine, maybe there's something else that you wanted to.
No, go ahead, John, please.
Well, I was kind of thinking often with training, we can be swithering, like everybody is so busy and resources are finite, and someone's maybe thinking about the course and on the edge of, am I going to sign up this time? And there's maybe, I guess, some things out of our awareness that might swing us away from, signing on the dotted line. And I just wonder, Alice and Katy, whether there's anything you would, because it doesn't sound like you were swithering, I mean, you were right in, but what you might say to yourselves on this side of the course that would really mean it's an imperative. Yes, it is the time to do it. And I know you both had lots of energy for it, or maybe what you might say to a colleague who is just about to sign up. And
yeah, I think for me, it would have been so easy to not do the course, would have been so easy to do that, and to give loads of reasons as to why I couldn't, particularly at that time, for loads of different reasons. And every time I was like, no, this has to happen. Like, I have to do this. And once I was in it, I was like, well, I have to, like, it's really hard to describe it, but it just didn't feel like a question almost. It was like, well, now I'm in this, and it's so effing hard and difficult and challenging, but oh my God, how much I'm learning, and what a gift, and what a privilege, what an unbelievable privilege to be able to do this course with somebody like Charmaine and Lizzie. Like, if you have that at all available to you, then just absolutely, like, it has to happen. And I think, like, I'm always going around telling everybody about the course and saying everybody has to do it, because Charmaine offers it for white people as a white only group, and also for Black people and people of colour. So it's not like it's for, there are options for everybody, and it's something that affects every single one of us in really, really profound ways. And I literally can't think of anything better to spend your money, time, energy, and heart on, like, literally. And it is such a gift. It doesn't feel like, oh, sometimes you can feel like, oh God, I spent all that money and all that time on that course, and oh, what was that for? It's like the complete opposite with Charmaine's course. It's like I could I need to keep on doing that, no matter how much it costs, no matter how much, you know, it just feels like that. Yeah. I'm not sure if I'm being very articulate in describing it, but yeah, everyone needs to do it.
Everyone should do it. I also feel, yeah, I found it deeply challenging, deeply life-changing, and also I found it deeply nourishing, deeply nourishing. And I think that, again, that's because, again, something that you said a few times, Charmaine, and I probably can't repeat it in the same articulate way, but something about ultimately white supremacy and racism rob white people of our humanity as well. Again, that makes me want to cry. And there's something about feeling some sort of, at some level, getting some of my humanity back. I've felt reconnected with it at some level through the course. So I felt really deeply nourished by it as well. Yeah.
And that, I think that's the gift, isn't it? That you've exactly said it, Katie. That's the gift of the course.
Yeah.
Is bringing us as white people back to our humanity. It isn't something that we're doing in a like white say. It doesn't have to be a like, oh, we're trying to be good white people, we're trying to save the world again. This is about actually, if I want to be human, I have to do the work.
Yeah, that's it.
Thank you both. Thank you both. Yeah.
Thank you. Lizzie, is there anything that you would like to say as somebody who does it with me in the way that you do it, and the impact for you, and how you sometimes will feel how the members are changing or how they get stuck too? Is there anything you'd like to add?
Yes, because we've done the course with a few groups now, lots of similar themes come through time and time again. But I'm so moved to see the way you two are talking today, because although the same themes come through, everyone experiences them in such a personal way, and there is so much space on your course, Charmaine, for people to really engage personally, individually, while still feeling very much cohesive within the group. And I was just thinking that when we met for the first session, Alice and Katy, with the group that you were in, thinking about those early ones, how difficult it was to speak at first. There was a lot of very full and icky silences to begin with, as people found their way into the wound. And looking sort of 20 weeks later, and all the groups and the continued WhatsApps that we've had, the energy now that you speak with, and there's so much more fluidity, and all the learning that you can sort of feel. It's not just up here, it's the excitement and the openness of being able to express your pain, and also the humanity that I also learned along the way all the time. I mean, I'm so privileged to keep going through this with so many different white people, with Charmaine. It's, you know, if people are thinking, will I have changed by the end? Well, here's the proof. From going for, I'm scared of saying, and I know that feeling too, and how do I do this, to the multi-layered way that you both now speak. And also that people coming to the end of this course, they start to form little groups and start to take action in the world, either because, as you say, the way you speak to other white people just in your day-to-day business, and up to people saying, oh, there's this thing going on, this is an organization, I'm going to challenge it. You know, I can't be a bystander anymore. So I hope that answers your question a little bit, Charmaine.
Yeah, I think that we do a brilliant job in facilitating just an average white person to move right through all the difficulties, all the shame, all the transgressions, all the guilt, the sadness, the fear, the awkwardness. And I think we hold the group with well, I do anyway, with such reverence. Number one, I hold the group with reverence. That's the first one. And then with compassion, in that taking them on this incredible journey. I mean, I never know where it's going to go. I don't have a sense of that. But what's so amazing is that we all show up exactly where we are. And I think that's the gift. And that there's a lot of terror, actually, for most of us, if someone says, just show up as you are. Most of the times we don't get permission just to simply be. And so we're all just being, with all our faults, with all our wounding, with all our scaredness. But there's something about the collective being. And then there's an element of trust and compassion that sort of envelops the group. So we can take those risks and reveal more of our heartache and our pain within that. And because it's a group process, you know, I would be learning from Alice, who would be learning from Katy, who would be learning from Lizzie. And so when we take all that learning, and I love what Katy said, that nourishment, it is a very nourishing experience that you come out where these lovely people now, instead of feeling, I can't take this risk, they analyze, well, what is the risk to me? Whether I speak or I don't, there's always a risk. And it's a very personal one. I never tell anyone that they should do something or not. But one of the things that the course does is enable you to make your own decisions about what you feel you can and can't do. And whatever that is, there's no external or internal judgment. You just do where you are. And it's not important to hold up a big placard and go, I'm anti-racist, I'm anti-racist. I think for me, and what the group kind of does is you do whatever you can. And even if the smallest of the smallest means that changes happen, and you start with the tiniest one. And if you can do larger, fine. If you can do smaller, fine. The whole point is, can we become more human in our expressions in our daily lives? Yep, Lizzie.
I wanted to add something, especially, you know, for therapists listening to what we do in our daily lives, and to link that back to what we do in our daily practices, because you were asking that, John. And I would say that working with you, and I'm just going to say doing the course, because I do the course, it's really, really helped me to talk about racism with my clients who are people of colour and Black people. I can bring it into the room when often they can't, because I'm white. So it's kind of assumed that that's not allowed in the room and that I won't be interested. It's unspoken. So now I feel equipped enough to open those conversations if my client is also wanting to go there and is willing. And then, as everyone else has been saying, sit with, now just see what comes up. Speak from the heart. I don't have to get it right. I'm not frightened about that anymore. And I know I can work through the rupture in a way that I couldn't have done before doing this course. So I think that's useful for therapists to know.
I think the other thing too that some of the people on the course were saying, that it's not only we bring race and racism to Black and brown folks, we're also actually bringing it to the white folks in the therapeutic setting. And that whiteness is now part of the conversation, rather than the conversation is only about Black and brown folks. Whiteness is existing. And the way that white folks talk to each other is a social construct. And what is the social construct that's happening between the client and the therapist, right? So I think that's also an added bonus, let's say, that white, sort of like what Alice was saying about her whiteness, is now being seen for what it is. It's no longer something that's a shadow or a distance. It's here, it's live, it's working. And so when two white people talk together, what are you actually saying? What's not being said? What is being ignored? What is being conjured or not being conjured? Because that conversation between two white people will be very different, wholly different, than if I step in the room with a white person, or if two Black and brown people are speaking. And I think that also needs to be recognized, that it's not just about Black and brown folks, because again, then we shift racism to a Black and brown person's problem. And I want to put it back exactly where it belongs. White people, what is it that you're making up that probably is not true?
Mm. Mm. Yeah, something about seeing something that had just been invisible to me, you know, like Alice said about whiteness, you know, like that I won't, if I have a bad day, it won't be because to do with my race, or if I walk into a shop, I'm not going to not get served because of my race. It's, yeah, I felt like it really showed me, the course really, yeah, made me realize it's us white people who need to do our work now. And I think I also felt in the course of if anyone's thinking of doing the course, I felt I got challenged lots of times when I said things. I got called out lots of times, and which is what I had most feared, and which was what had made me be so frozen. And because of the way that you, Charmaine, and you, Lizzie, met us with challenge and compassion, yeah, and like you said, Lizzie, just then, the ruptures could be worked through, and that's so liberating to feel, yeah, I will be challenged. I can say things, I can show it where I am. I will be challenged if I need to. I can challenge if I need to. I'm working on that one, and I'm working on all of it actually. And we can, it's survivable, you know. It's like that thing of, we're not as fragile as we think we are as white people, you know, we're actually got much more resilient.
And I'm just thinking about the time, we're almost up to the time that we have. I'm just, yeah, so touched by everything that I've heard in the conversation. And I wonder, Charmaine, if there might be a last word or a last comment that you want to kind of have before we wrap up about the course, or
yeah, we're planning on some courses. We've already done some live face-to-face courses already, and they're quite amazing. So we're planning to do a couple of weekends in February. Boris is going to say whether we can meet or not, and I don't know. So they're going to be in February and March, and then also doing some more online 10-week course for both Black and brown folks, and then for white folks. I think it's a really good course. I mean, what better testimony can I have from Katy and Alice, who are speaking from the heart? I mean, I think that says it all. But come and take the course, come and find out what you don't know, come and find out what you do know, and let's go from there. But thank you, John, thank you, Katy, thank you, Lizzie, and thank you, Alice, for showing up today to promote racism in real time. Thank you so much.
yes, thank you everyone for being here, taking some time, and yeah, it's a wonderful testimony and encouragement to be on the course. Maybe one last thing, a website where people could make contact or find out about the course.
Yes. It's Kokoro, Kokoro, kokorotherapy.co.uk.
Great, yes.
Yeah.
And wherever the video is posted, wherever you as the viewer are watching us, we will have that link. So yeah, great.
And also coming up, we are planning to do a taster session for 2 hours. Again, we haven't booked exactly because we're really slow on the uptake on these kind of technology things, but we're getting there. We're getting there with John at the helm.
So watch this space at online events. Yeah, it makes those 2 hours and of course the course just real, well, irresistible and a real imperative to engage with. So thank you, Katy and Alice and Lizzie. Thank you, Charmaine, for being here. It's been an excellent conversation, and look forward to seeing everybody and one of those pieces of engagement. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, everybody. Have a good day.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.